how are foreign fighters recruited, and how do they end up going where they go? Why is it that that certain destinations attract many, certain conflicts attract many foreign fighters, for example, whereas others attract few? Now, in terms of individual recruitment, I think here the same principles apply as in recruitment to other forms of contentious, risky activism, meaning that we tend to see that the economic factors play a role because of the opportunity cost associated with going abroad, that social networks affect who goes, and that proximate incentives like search for adventurism or camaraderie and so on are very, very important. What we do see, though, when we compare foreign fighters to terrorists, is that foreign fighters tend to be more diverse. They're typically more heterogeneous group, more of the young, very young, more of the very old, both poor and rich, for example. And this is probably because generally foreign fighting is less contentious than terrorism is. So, you know, it appeals to a broader pool of people. Now, why is it that some destinations attract so many? I think there are three factors that affect the distribution of foreign fighters. One is what I call ideological salience, namely the degree to which the conflict, the constellation of conflict actors in the theater fit with the ideology of the prospective foreign fighters. And here, ethnic and religious divides are particularly important. And we see in the history of Islamist foreign fighters that you see more foreign fighters in conflicts where Muslims fight non-Muslims than you see in conflicts where Sunni Muslims fight Sunni Muslims, like, for example, in Algeria in the 1990s. Very few foreign fighters. And the second factor is the degree to which you have facilitators. And in the form of organizations, transnational organizations that can help facilitate this. And the conflicts where you saw a lot of foreign fighters, like the Spanish Civil War, Palestine 48, Afghanistan in the 1980s, all had transnational organizations backing them. You had the Comintern for Spain, you had the Jewish Agency for the Jewish volunteers, and you had the organization of the Islamic Conference and other pan-Islamic organizations for Afghanistan. A third factor is constraints, the low constraints. So it helps when states don't try to stop the foreign fighters. And this was the case in the 1980s Afghanistan, and it is to some extent the case in Syria today, although the situation is changing now. But at least in 2011-12, it was relatively easy to go to Syria because many countries sympathized with the rebellion and probably saw it as politically costly to try and stop everyone from going there. The second analytical question is what impact do foreign fighters have on insurgencies? Now, the first thing to say is that this is an under-researched topic. The only systematic study on this is one by Kristin Bakker that came out this year. But you have some observations in case studies that we can use. And on the one hand, it seems that foreign fighters can bring something to the insurgents. They bring manpower, of course. They can also influence the local insurgents ideologically. Typically, they do so in a sort of more radicalizing or kind of non-compromising direction. And they also can bring access to external resources. They can facilitate communication between the local insurgents and rich donors in other countries, for example. But on the other hand, they can be detrimental to the insurgency. There are lots of anecdotal evidence of bad relations between the foreign fighters and the local population. They don't get along. The foreign fighters are seen as too religiously strict, for example, or some other dispute emerges. Foreign fighters can also create a reputation problem for the insurgents, as the international community focuses on the foreign fighters rather than the local insurgency. And third, we don't really know what the effect of foreign fighters is on the overall conflict outcome. We don't really know whether it helps insurgents win or not. What I think we can say, though, is that foreign fighters have a spoiling effect. That is, they make peace agreements more difficult to reach. That's probably because foreign fighters tend to join the most radical wings of a given insurgency, which again has to do with the fact that foreign fighters are selected for ideology. You have to be ideological in the first place to become a foreign fighter. So you're, on average, less pragmatic than the typical insurgent.